Don't start with no sound yet. I haven't started yet, guys. All right, let's pop this baby in. Okay, guys, hopefully you hear me loud and clear. Don't worry, the graph is about to change. I am going to be visible to you very shortly. Do you guys hear me loud and clear? Please give me a yes, sir. We hear you loud and clear. A thumbs up. Do you guys hear me well? Audio is good. All right. Salam alaikum. Yes. Hello. Buenos dias, everybody. How are you all? Very glad to have you all on this broadcast. I'm getting better at this, baby. Yes. Got it right. Really happy to get this right. All right, guys. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones. Why? Because I saw another video today. It got me really excited. A promo video of Mike Tyson and Roy Jones. And I got to tell you guys something. Mike Tyson looks amazing, man. I don't know what they did to him. I really have no idea what they did to him. But he looks shredded, muscular, ripped. When I saw him last on social media, on TV, he looked old. He looked frail. He looked like he lost. He just wasn't wearing his age well. And lo and behold, some new footage has come up online today, which actually I want to share with you guys. Let me see if I can get this to work. I'm going to show you guys a video of Mike Tyson. I'm going to turn off the sound so it doesn't blow up our ears here. And we're going to watch this together. Let's see Mike Tyson in action here. You guys tell me what you guys think he looks like. Okay, here he is. Okay, so my thoughts on this video. This is a very, very recent video. Hold on one second. I'm about to push play right here. Just give me 1 second. Okay, guys, here it is. I'm going to turn off the sound so it doesn't blow up your ears. Here it is, man. He looks powerful. He looks explosive. Look at his legs. Here he is with the legend Rafael Cordero. Awesome choice for preparation for this fight. Mike Tyson slipping, looking quick, looking explosive, looking as powerful as he used to be. Head movement is there. Legs look great. His mobility is great. He's able to sink down here. Notice this is him without his shirt. I don't know if you guys noticed something here. Maybe I shouldn't say too much here, but Mike Tyson, there's something to notice. For those of you who have a great eye for fitness and training, there is something for you to notice there. I'm not going to mention it, but here's Mike back in full order here, hitting the pads, just looking amazing. I didn't think they can get him here. I don't know if he had the motivation to do it, to train this much. I did listen to his podcast on Joe Rogan, and he seems to be motivated. He's running again. He's training. He's getting the physio he needs to do. He is back in full effect. It seems like he wants to train and fight like he used to. I was really impressed by this video. I saw this video today. I'm not sure when it came out. I'm looking at the date here. It was August 6th. So he's probably looking even better than this right now. Okay, guys, those are my initial thoughts when I saw this. I have more to say about this. So just give me 1 second here. Let me pop back in your screen here. Hopefully, you guys were able to see that. Well, not too much lag. Look, what did Mike Tyson look like in that video? To be honest, he looked amazing. He looked explosive. He looked muscular. He looked quick. His head movement was on point. Obviously, his technique is flawless. I mean, the man always was an amazing technician. Does he look like a 53-year-old boxer who hasn't fought in 12 years? I would say no, he does not look like that. Now, remember, in the last time we talked about it, we talked about this fight. We said Roy Jones has been more active. I think Roy Jones' last fight was in 2018, 2016, not too long ago. Mike Tyson's last fight was probably in the year, 2004 or something like that. I'd have to look it up, okay? But it's been a long time since Mike Tyson fought. It's been well over 10 years, and his last few fights weren't so good. Whereas Roy Jones has still been winning. Now, here's the scary thing. When I first talked about this fight, I didn't know it was an 8-rounder. I had assumed it was a 12-rounder. And I don't know why Roy Jones would agree to an 8-rounder. An 8-rounder, in my opinion, is a lot more dangerous for Roy Jones. A lot more. Those last 4 rounds would have been a blessing for Roy. Those are the rounds I think he would do the most damage. Even when Mike Tyson was in his prime, The majority of his knockouts happened in the first 5 rounds. The majority of his knockouts happened in the first 5 rounds. And when he had difficulties in fights, it was always late. Now he's 53 years old, hasn't been in the ring in a long time. Probably his body is aching. You know, on the Rogan show, he was saying after his first workout with Rafael Cordero, just hitting the mitts for 3 minutes, he was sore for an entire week. And that's what happens when you haven't trained in a very long time. If you haven't trained in a very, very long time and you train again, it's not a fun experience. You know, you feel horrible. Then you think, I have to do a training camp. How am I going to do a training? Well, you'd have to get in shape to do a training camp. So the fact that I just saw Mike Tyson look the way he does, and that was a month ago, and the fight is 8 rounds, I had given a 60-40 for Roy Jones. I was really on the Roy Jones, I think Roy Jones is going to run away with it type speech. Now I'm much more reluctant to give it 60-40 for Roy Jones. Okay, I think I would even, back then I was going to give it 70-30 for Roy Jones. Right now I'm thinking, you know what, it's going to be a lot closer than that. I think Mike Tyson can finish Roy Jones. It is possible, but I'm still picking Roy. For those of you who are wondering, I'm still picking Roy, but I gotta go with 55-45, man. I'll tell you why. Because Mike Tyson can really, he can knock anybody out. For those of you who didn't grow up watching Mike Tyson, those punches he's hitting on those pads, that's enough to put any man out on the planet. And Roy Jones is a lot smaller physically. I think he's only like an inch taller. Reach is going to be comparable. Now, don't forget, Mike Tyson was fighting guys 6'4" his entire career, 6'6". Now he's fighting a guy 5'11". Mike Tyson is 5'10". He's about 5'10". How is Mike? That's another major factor. Is Mike Tyson right now won't have a major reach disadvantage. So that, coupled with the way Mike Tyson looks right now, and the fact that it's only 8 rounds has really swung my opinion. I still think Roy Jones is a little bit too smart. A little bit, he aged better. I don't want to say he's younger, but he aged better. He's competed more recently. I'm still giving it to Roy, but it's a much more difficult fight than I had originally anticipated. Okay, guys, with that said, give me your quick thoughts on this fight. Since we've talked about it in the past, I want to hear your quick thoughts about it, and then let's do and ask me anything. You guys can absolutely ask me anything. Let's go for it. Hey, Coach, who do you think would have won when Tyson was considered unbeatable versus Roy Jones when he went up to heavyweight? Mind of Ray Ray, welcome, my friend. Welcome. Ray Ray, I would say Mike Tyson, no doubt about it. I don't think Roy Jones would even dare to do that fight. I know they've talked about it, this and that. I don't think Roy Jones, his dad, his entourage would allow that fight to be signed. If you're talking about Mike Tyson in his prime, men that were 6'6", 6'5", 250 pounds didn't want to fight him. Roy Jones was just too small. Ruiz was the perfect fight. Ruiz was a good heavyweight champion, but he was not a legend. Mike Tyson is arguably the greatest heavyweight champion, and I say that arguably in the most serious sense. Okay, I don't think he'll make the top 3 of all the boxing scholars out there, but he'd be in the discussion. He'd be in the discussion for arguably one of the greatest heavyweight. Okay, but there are glaring other choices such as Rocky Marciano, Muhammad Ali, etc. Okay, Lennox Lewis. But you have to say that Mike Tyson was in that conversation. Roy Jones Jr. as a heavyweight champion, no, he was not in that conversation. Could GSP beat Tyson in an MMA match? That's from 410 bench. Well, of course he could. And Mike Tyson could beat George St. Pierre in a boxing match. Nobody's going to go into the other man's sport. Don't forget, these guys are legends in their sport. Okay, so would either of these guys beat Dan Gable in wrestling? No, they wouldn't. So it's an easy one, that one. Okay, is Mike on TRT? That's from Plush PC. Well, I don't know. I'll leave you guys decide. I'll let you guys decide. You guys tell me what you think. PED testing before the fight. That's from the Man in Black. Well, you know what? If you think about it, these guys are making so much money on this fight. I know it's for charity, but I'm assuming there's a lot of money on this fight. You don't want this fight to cancel. You already know what's going on. I'm sure Roy Jones and Mike Tyson already know what the other guy's doing. But maybe there's 20, 30. I don't want to guess the number, but there's a lot of money on the line. I know it's for charity or whatnot, but they're going to get paid. I'm pretty sure. Amit Sangs asks, I think Costa is on steroids. Is it safe to say Romero is also on steroids? That's from Amit. Amit saying that Paulo Costa, and Yoel Romero are on steroids. Is it safe to say that? Well, guys, you know what? I know Yoel Romero tested positive, but then it came out that it was a contaminated substance. And Paulo Costa was found guilty for using IVs. Now, does that mean that because he used an IV, he was on steroids? Well, the reason why IVs are banned, in my understanding, from after reading the rules, is because it can dilute an illegal substance, basically mask an illegal substance one way or another. You can pass a drug test if you dilute your samples or whatnot with an IV. Now, I'm not sure exactly how that works, to be honest with you. I've never done that. I've never tried to mask for steroids or PEDs or anything like that. I've never given PEDs to a fighter. I've never researched it deeply. You know, I've heard things, and I don't want to repeat hearsay too much. But the man was found guilty, from what I understand, or his doctor was found guilty for administering an IV when you're not supposed to. My number one indicator for if somebody's on steroids is go back to their previous fights. Go back to earlier in their career. What did they look like then? And did they have a giant leap in fitness or a giant leap in physical ability? Because, you know, for those of you who've been training a long time, you know that gains are usually progressive, very progressive. They come about slow. And once in a while, you have a technical epiphany or something and changes your game, and your game's just light years ahead of what it used to be, you know, the month before. But sometimes you can tell that the evolution is just a question of hormones. You know, you can tell that the person's jawline is bigger, their head is bigger, they're more muscular. They're doing the same old double they used to do, but now they're more powerful. They're lifting you and more explosiveness. They're hitting you with the same mechanics they used to have, but now the result is so much more apparent. I'll give you guys a great for instance. If you guys followed Pride and UFC early in the day, when they used to give you medals, you know, did you know that when you used to fight in UFC, if you won your fights early on, you would get a medal? There was a fighter named Dan Henderson. You guys know Dan Henderson very well. But his nickname back in the day was, anybody know? Decision Dan. They used to call him Decision Dan. Why? Because all of Dan Henderson's fights used to go to decision. Watch his early fights. And then later on, he had a hormonal replacement therapy exemption of some sort. I don't know what it was. Okay, and I believe he's open about it. That's why I'm using his name. And I believe it was a cream or an ointment or something he would put on his body. And all of a sudden, he's H-bomb. We're calling him H-bomb. I got to double check here, guys. I think that my stream is lagging, unfortunately. I hope you guys can still hear me. He went from Decision Dan to the H-bomb. Now, was it only because of steroids? No, probably not. But steroids or HGH or whatever it is he took allowed him to train more, allowed him to be physically stronger. It allowed his bones to become thicker, more robust, more explosive. And all of a sudden you have this guy whose mechanics are very similar to what they used to be in the past, but yeah, he's getting a lot more knockouts. Okay, guys, please bear with me here. I think I have a lag. Very unfortunate here. I do have a super chat here. Let me see if I can read it here. Does your massage gun help increase flexibility? I might get one this weekend. That's from fight training. Yes, I do believe it does. Okay, so what I usually do is I'll stretch. I'll use the massager, and I'll stretch again. But it's not a miracle pill. The massager, I definitely use it a lot when I'm doing mobility, and it loosens me up. But the secrets to flexibility is not going to come down to a high-powered massage gun. I believe that you have to use regular stretching on a regular basis, not too intense. And if you stretch on a regular basis, your flexibility will improve. Do lots of mobility. Use the gun along as a tool. But how much will it help you? I will say it would help you like 5 to 10%. It'll increase your gains by that much. Okay, if that's important to you, then it's good. But the massage gun is really just for loosening up muscles, keeping your muscles healthy and limber to prevent injury and to help you recover faster. Okay, but it's not necessarily a super aid to stretching. Okay. Okay, guys, looks like my stream is back to normal on my end. I hope it was normal the whole way through and you guys heard everything I said. Lifestyle plays a role in hormone level, and combat athletes are typically overtrained. That's from Vince Ortiz. Vince, you are very wise, my friend. I agree with you immensely. I do believe that sometimes less training is better. Here's what I suggest for those of you training hard. Train 3 weeks really hard, and then the 4th week, lots of active rest. Lots of just technical training, shadow boxing. Don't train so hard. The 3 weeks hard training. 1 week more general physical preparation, jogging, swimming, a little light weight training, nothing too heavy. Just take a easier week in the gym and then hit another 3-week cycle. I find that gives for the best results. Why? Because that 1 week of rest and recovery, of active rest, will allow you to bank in those gains. Don't forget, the formula for adaptation is stress plus recovery equals adaptation. Stress plus stress does not equal adaptation. Okay, you'll actually get weaker. You actually become more frail. You'll actually can get sick and injured. You know those days where you go in the gym and every roll you injured yourself. So roll 1, you hurt your elbow. Roll 2, you hurt your neck. And roll 3, your back is hurting. Guess what? You're overtrained. Your muscles need recovery. You've overtaxed your body. Time to give it a rest. Time to give the body a rest. All right, gentlemen, what else we got here? Guys, by the way, TriStar Gym is open again. I forgot to mention it. Okay, TriStar Gym is open again. Super happy. We had our first day yesterday. Today is our second day. We did training in the morning. Now tonight I'm going to the striking class and jiu-jitsu. I'm super excited. I'm going to have some new footage for you guys from the gym. I'm going to be posting it on this channel as usual. Been out of the gym for 6 months. I'm so grateful and so happy to be back in the gym. Thank you all for the support during that time. And welcome back, everybody who's back in the gym. The TriStar Gym dorms are open again as well. TriStar Gym dorms are open. I was supposed to put up the website on the dorms. The TriStar Gym dorms again are open. We are functioning again. So happy to hear that. Okay, guys, I got another question here from Amit. Amit asks, who would you pick if Khabib fought Usman at welterweight? Well, at welterweight, I'd have to pick Usman. At that level, you know, he's just too much of a weight discrepancy. Pound for pound, I would pick Khabib. Both phenomenal fighters. Is it safe to come train at TriStar right now? Yes, Evan. It's as safe as anywhere other gym. Okay. Coach Zahabi in an exhibition match. Take my money. That's from Jacopo. Well, I don't know who you'd want to exhibition match me. Sure, come on down to the gym. We'll glove up and we'll have some fun. Costa looks like a bodybuilder and trains 3-4 hours a day at least. Come on, power love. Well, look, if you're training 3 to 4 hours a day in bodybuilding, it makes sense you look like a bodybuilder. If you're training in MMA, if you're running and punching and kicking and you're wrestling hours on end, you're usually not going to be overly muscular. Okay. Now you can be MMA and muscular, but not overly muscular like that. You're right. He does look like a bodybuilder, which would be very hard to do. Cejudo versus Tyson in MMA. That's a joke. PPLJ. Well, of course, you know, that would be nuts. Okay. Also saw that Usman did. Oops, it skipped on me here. Also, we saw what Usman did to Woodley. Do you think Khabib would also be able to do the same thing at 165? Would he be able to do that to Woodley at 165? Do you mean if they met at 165, Woodley versus Khabib? You know what? In this time right now, I'd pick Khabib. I think 165 would drain Woodley. It would be very tough for him to make 165. And after a round or two of wrestling, chain wrestling, I think Khabib could start taking over. Cutting that extra 5 pounds would be very difficult, I think. The H-bomb was born. Anthony, I'm glad that means you heard my my talk on H-bomb. It was telling me I was frozen down here on my side, so I'm happy it was playing. We can hear you. Okay, that's fantastic. Okay. What are your thoughts on karate forms, on kata forms in traditional martial arts, taekwondo and karate? Thank you so much. That's from Ellie Wapner. And Ellie Wapner says, us. You know what? I'm not a big believer in that. Like, I think you just should shadow box. Why would you want to order in a specific sequence your shadow boxing? It's just basically shadow boxing. I think shadow boxing is great, but why would you want to make it in a particular order? You know, it doesn't make sense to me. So I never seen a fighter do a lot of forms and get really good. It's always like, you know, they were doing forms when they were a kid and then they converted to kickboxing, Muay Thai, karate, karate, kickboxing sport, the sport of karate and kickboxing. I think forms is good for younger kids just to get them in order, to get them disciplined. It would be hard to teach kids shadow boxing as a group. So let's shadow box together. It does make sense in certain instances. But if you're a professional fighter, would I make you do katas? No. So on a professional level, I would say no. At a beginner level, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it can make sense. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. That's from Artem Lobov. Artem, I see you are admiring my shirt. This is one of my new favorite shirts, guys. It says, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. If you don't know what these words mean, I have a classic movie for you to watch. Make sure to watch Princess Bride. Many of us grew up on this movie, a great, great movie that we all grew up and love. And no lagging. Okay, that's such great news. Fantastic. I'm happy it was only on my end. Thank you very much for letting me know. Okay, fantastic. All right. Is 25 too old to start wrestling? That's from Armo. No, not at all. Don't even think about it. Get right into it. What else we got here? Who is the best Gracie fighter? Who is the best Gracie fighter? Wow, that's a good question. I think I would have to go with Renzo Gracie. Why? Because his jiu-jitsu is impeccable. His striking is great. And he's just mentally tough. He's just so mentally tough. I think that when he was in his prime, he was the best of the Gracies. Now, a lot of people will say Rickson Gracie, and I think Rickson Gracie was great. But if you saw his fights in Japan, for those of you who didn't get a chance to see them, look them up. They're really worth watching. They're pretty cool. They're really cool. You could tell that he had no striking, and his takedowns were very shaky. So I think that Renzo Gracie would go a lot further in today's MMA. Okay, so he was just, Renzo Gracie had evolved more with the times, in my opinion. Okay, what else we got here? Let's see. How many people do we have in this chat room? Where's that number? 600. No. It can't be right. Concurrent viewers, 618. That's what it says right now. All right, so let's let the chat roll on. It's lagging. My chat room thingamajigger is lagging, but I'm going to... Okay, here, some more popping up here. Okay. Rickson is the best Gracie fighter. See, I knew we were going to have a controversy over that. Absolutely a very popular thought. A lot of people think Rickson was... I think Rickson was the greatest grappler that the Gracie's had. Now, you asked me who's the greatest fighter. When it comes to grappling, I would pick Rickson Gracie because according to all the Gracies, he's the best. But fighter... I would go with Renzo Gracie. Steven Diaz says, Mike Tyson told Joe Rogan fighting gives him an erection. Have you experienced this? I heard that. I heard the whole podcast. I've been following Mike Tyson's career for many, many years. And I find that extremely bizarre. Extremely. Not only has it never happened to me, fighting, I've never heard any fighter express such a thing. Now, you know what? It was really bizarre. And I think Joe did an amazing job to diffuse the situation. Joe was like, whoa, 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 whoa. You can't possibly mean this. Like, this is like, you're treading on thin ice here. Like, I don't know what was going on in Joe's head, but I felt like what he did is he helped Mike from shooting himself in the foot, because that was a ridiculous statement. Now, let's say, for instance, fighting gives you an erection. Let's say, for instance, it does. And I've never heard of this. I've never heard of a single fighter express this idea. That's the kind of thing you keep to yourself. You don't say that on the air. I personally wouldn't. I'd go see a doctor. Something's wrong with me. I think Joe Rogan did a good job of saying, look, when people hear that, like, I don't know, I didn't remember what he said, but he was basically kind of laughing it off and saying, no, that can't be right. You can't mean this. You can't mean these words you just said. People are going to freak out when they hear this. People are just going to think you're nuts. And I'm happy he did that, because it was ridiculous. It wasn't entertaining. It was dumb. It was foolish. It makes no sense. And if by any chance he was either joking, maybe Tyson was joking, and we just don't get it, or he's being serious. And I think if he's being serious, he should keep it to himself, especially considering his past. Okay, and I'm not saying I don't want to get involved in this past. I don't know the details, but that's something I'll really keep to myself. That's just my advice. Okay, and I don't want to judge the man. If he wants to be open and honest about it, and he feels that helps him, fine, do it. But in my opinion, as a brother, as a friend, if I was his friend, which I don't know the man personally, I would tell him that's the kind of thing he should keep to himself. What is a good resource to develop a top game like Khabib for BJJ? Gracias. That's from Carlitos. You know what? There are so many great top game passers. There are so many. I think GSP was still the greatest top game passer ever. And Khabib, I think, is at that level. I think it will be, let's call it a tie. And George, I can tell you for a fact, he learned his top game from John Danaher. Okay, John Danaher was a major component in George's development, and also Wagner Fabiano. Wagner Fabiano also trained us at a young age. Fabio Holanda also trained us. Bruno Fernandes also trained us. And of course, the man who trained us the most, above all, was John Danaher. So John Danaher, get any DVD he has of passing. Check out BJJ Fanatics. Check out their passing videos, but get something from John Danaher team. And you just can't get better than that. Okay, guys, now the chat room is exploding with activity. I don't know what's up with YouTube. YouTube is like lagging behind. I got this supercomputer that I just bought for you guys. I bought a PC. I got all this new software to make sure that we're rolling. And now it seems that YouTube is finally catching up. Hey, for us, have you released any MMA courses, or are you working on releasing any? If you do, I'm going to buy it. That's from Guard MMA Highlights. Well, thank you for that. I am cooking up a new video. My next video is going to be on guillotine controls. When you grab a guillotine and somebody tries to pass your guard, what to do. If you grab a guillotine and somebody's defending, how to counter them. Okay, so it's aggressive guillotine attacks. I plan to have it on the next 2 to 3 weeks on jujiclub.com. Check out jujiclub.com. We have 3 instructionals right now, one on the omoplata, one on guard retention, and one on reverse de la Hiva. 3 amazing DVDs, $25, 40 minutes long, but each one of them is about a seminar, a 3-hour seminar. The content you will get in a 3-hour seminar. Go to jujiclub.com. Check out my new video coming out very shortly. In the next, I would say, guys, give me maximum 4 weeks, but I'm going to get it done in 2 or 3. Very likely I'll have it ready to release for you guys. I am cutting it and working on it every day a little bit. I'm going to bring you guys a nice guillotine instructional. It's going to be a masterpiece, I promise you. Salam, coach, is Tim Tam good for arthritis? That's from Mohas. Yes, I feel that it does. It's very good for arthritis. I've helped people who have arthritis with it. It definitely relieves pain. Guys, by the way, what you're seeing on your screen now is Tim Tam's. I should mention it. Okay, it's a sponsor. Thank you, Tim Tam, our sponsor. You see that red ball attached to a Theragun? That's the universal adapter by Tim Tam. Tim Tam now makes the world's first and only heated tip that is universally attached to any massage gun. And right now, we're giving the adapter to any massage gun you have right now for free. So go to timtam.tech. Buy the Fireball, okay, the universal heated tip. which is going on for sale right now for like $75. You get the adapter for free. The adapter's $40. If you don't buy it now, you're gonna have to add on an extra $40 in the future. It hooks up to Hyper Ice. It hooks up to the all new Power Massager Pro. It hooks up to any massage gun, including Theragun and the Hyper Ice. So get one now, guys. If you're training, if you're serious about training, if you're serious about your health, get that machine. Any advice on pre-fight nerves? That's from OQ. You know what? I think it's all about starting small. Start with grappling tournaments. Start with amateur boxing fights. And, you know, you're going to experience the nerves. There's just not too many ways around it. All right, guys. We've had an explosion of chats pop up. I don't think we're getting the same rate of chats. But mine is finally catching up, I think, to yours. What do you think about Diaz post returning? I'm sorry, I can't see that here. Possibly returning. What do you think about Diaz possibly returning? That's from Shetty. Look, I'm really looking forward to it because there's been so many times they've said he's going to come back. I think it's time for him to come back. Like if he's going to do it, he's got to do it now. You know, he's getting up there in age. He's got to be close to 40 now. So it's time to do it now. There are big names. There are big name fights for him. Big money fights for Nick Diaz. We love to watch the man fight. He's a great fighter. He does some incredible work in the octagon. He fought George St. Pierre for a title, fought Carlos Condit for a title. Now is the time for him to fight somebody with a name and just get it done, because in a year or two or a year or three, maybe he won't have that opportunity. Is there any one-on-one training with you at TriStar? That's from Christian. You'd have to call the gym and ask. Once in a while I do a private, okay, but it's rare. I did BJJ with a dude at TriStar and he let me get into position. Big disrespect. Jeremy Trepanier. Well, Jeremy, I don't know. Maybe he let you get side control on him or take his back because he felt that, you know, you're not as seasoned as him. I don't know. If you're telling me he disrespected you by letting you get into position, that's not something uncommon. You know, sometimes when I roll with a blue belt or a purple belt, I'll let them mount me and I'll practice my escapes. I think it's fun, you know, because the black belt gets to do his escapes and the purple belt or blue belt, he gets to mount finally instead of always getting crushed. But I can understand your frustration. You know, you want to roll, you want to test yourself, but I don't think that's the best way to approach it. I think having great technical exchanges is the key to development. You know, if you want to win and you want to dominate and you want to test yourself, go compete. They're not going to give you position then. Okay, so I often let people pass my guard and practice. Like I'll start bottom side control. Why? I'll tell you why. Because I hate being bottom side control. I remember like earlier in my career when I was like purple belt or people who catch side control on me, I used to like waste so much energy. And I realized it's because I'm not good at side control bottom and I panic or I just force too much. You know, whenever you're doing something and it exhausts you, you're doing something wrong. Something is wrong. You have to work under that assumption. So what did I do? You know, I did what a lot of black belts do. They let you get side control and they kind of just learn to remain calm and find their favorite escapes. And you know, these escapes take practice. It's not because somebody taught you a side control bottom escape you're going to be able to do it at will. No, you need to combine it with other escapes, you know, and you need to develop the nuances. So it's very common. And a lot of time at TriStar Gym, we start on the back. Or we start mounted. I learned that from John Denhart. You know, oftentimes he would tell us to start on back position, start wrestling from there. Why? Because you're learning how to escape the back on a regular basis. Purple belt is the hardest belt to get in BJJ. Is that possible to pass from the blue to purple in 1 year, or looks like a fake purple? That's from Jalil Tazi. It's true. It's the hardest transition. Here's what I would tell you, Jalil Tazi. If you're not sure, go and compete. If you go in the purple belt division and you get crushed and annihilated by purple belts, good chances are you're not really a purple belt. If you can hang with the purple belts in your division, then it's an indicator that you're a good purple belt. You don't even have to compete. Just go to other clubs, you know, travel around, like, you know, if you ever travel or go to different clubs. And you know what's going to happen? There's going to be other purple belts going to walk into your club. And that's how you assess yourself. You know, you have yourself a good role and see where things are at. Your opinion on Bas Rutten fighting tapes. Have you ever used it for training? That's from Ash. Yes, I've seen them back in the day. Those were old school tapes. I thought they were great. I love them. I really, really did enjoy Basrutin's material. I think he's excellent. You're not scared of COVID. That's from Manuel Olivas. Well, listen, I'm not a COVID expert, but listen, they've allowed us now officially to start training again. I'm ready to take the risk. It's true that I'm in contact with a lot of people, so I'm just very careful with my parents. My parents are older. They have pre-existing condition. I stay far and away from them. I keep my kids, I tell my kids, when you go to grandmas and grandpas, wash your hands, keep a distance, don't get too close to your grandpa and grandma. But in terms of my parents, they don't care. My parents are like, hey, we don't care. Bring the kids over. We want to hug him. We want to kiss him. We don't care about this. We're not scared. If we get sick, we get sick. They have that type of attitude. Now, personally, I don't have that type of attitude. I like to make sure that if anybody in my circle is at risk, I stay away from them as much as possible. All right, guys. I have everything on my end lagging. Totally everything. I'm going to push the refresh button. Again, I think it's a YouTube thing because my stream on my software, on my side, on my computer is running beautifully. It is the live stream. It's my YouTube window that's lagging. So I'm running clean on my end. All right, so I refreshed. Let's see what else here. Please, coach, I want to be your chat moderator. I sent you an email a few months ago. Oh, that's from Jerry Trepanier. Okay, Jeremy, here you go. I'm going to give you a shot. Let's give Jeremy Trepanier a shout out moderator. Hold on. It just now, all these chats are popping in now. I just lost Jeremy Trepanier. Jeremy, if you hear me, send me another chat. I'm going to make you moderator. Where is Mr. Trepanier? Best no equipment workout routine to get lean, please. That's from Total Gajus. Well, I love shadow boxing. I love shadow boxing and doing body weight training, sprints, plyometrics, push-ups, sit-ups. I do this kind of workout on a regular basis. I love it. I think it's a great way to stay lean. All right. Mr. Trepanier, guys. Let's put Mr. Trepanier as the moderator. Add moderator. Boom, Mr. Trepanier. Sir, you are now moderating. Coach, what are your thoughts on morality? Oh boy. Do you think God is the source of morality? Or is morality something we can objectively deduce? I ask because I know you watch Sam Harris. That's from Cremidis. Well, Cremidis, look, I'll tell you something. I find that, I've said before, Sam Harris is a very intelligent guy, but I don't find he's a very wise person. I think he said some incredibly ignorant things, especially about Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, okay? As a matter of fact, Juan Cole, a scholar in Islam, he wrote a beautiful article. He wrote a 2-part article saying everything, literally this is the name of the article, like I'm paraphrasing here, but it's literally everything Sam Harris says about Islam is wrong. And Juan Cole, a PhD in Islamic studies, an Orientalist, he challenged Sam to a debate on Twitter. He said, look, what you're saying is total propaganda. You're not reading contextually. You're taking verses out of context. You never quote the Quran in its proper context. You slander Islam. You slander Judaism. You slander Christianity. Bring it to the table. And he wouldn't. And he just simply won't. He said some extremely ignorant things. Now, is he a logical person? Is he a rational person? Yes. Is he extremely biased? Yes. Is he profiting after 9/11? After 9/11, there's been a wave of Islamophobia. Literally, 1 to 3 anti-Muslim books have been printed a day since 9/11. A day. Okay, there's lots of anti-Islamic propaganda. Now, they've done this with Judaism in the past. They've done this also with a variety of races and nations. Okay, they've done this in the past, having false propaganda. It is not true that his most ignorant statement, the statement I have the most trouble with, he says, Sam Harris says, and I'm going to get to your question, okay? I just want to tell you where I stand with this whole Sam Harris thing. He says, look, you're either like Al-Qaeda, because that's Islam, or you're a fake Muslim. If you're not like Al-Qaeda, you're not really a Muslim, because Islam is really just what Al-Qaeda does. So he's saying if you're really a Muslim, if you're an authentic Muslim, you're an Al-Qaeda guy. That's what you think. That you've got to be bloodthirsty and deranged. Now, If that is the case, why is it that 99.999% of all the scholars in Islam, both Muslim and non-Muslim scholars, completely disagree with him? Say that Sam Harris, who's not a scholar in theology or Islam by any means, they're all saying, look, this guy's totally wrong. Doesn't know what he's talking about. Why won't he quote the Quran? He never quotes the Quran. He very rarely mentions anything directly about the Quran because he knows that any verse he quotes and he tries to take it out of context, he's going to get bombarded by the context of when these verses were released, revealed, and why were they revealed, and what happened before and after, etc. Just like Juan Cole did in his articles. He's saying, look, it has nothing to do with Islam. That's one reason why I don't like the guy too much. I'll be honest with you, because he spread so much Islamophobia. And I got, my family's Muslim, my kids are Muslim. And yes, we feel the effects. So many times I get messages, hate messages, or people, cursing me or whatnot. Why? Because we're Muslim. And it's just not right. It's totally wrong. I'll tell you something. We're the most peace-loving, tranquil people. Okay, there are good Muslims, there are bad Muslims, but I'll tell you something. Al-Qaeda kills more Muslims than any other group. Okay, so we dislike Al-Qaeda more than anybody in the world. Muslims dislike Al-Qaeda more than, we're the biggest victims of Al-Qaeda and such groups. Okay, ISIS, etc. So his philosophy, listen, I've reviewed his philosophy. He's a good philosopher. He's not a great philosopher. That's my opinion. He seems to be unaware of certain key ideas. Okay, so one thing he says, look, we can use our human reason to use our rationality to find out what's right and wrong in the world. Well, he's clearly not well versed in objective morality, the idea of objective morality. I love how Jordan Peterson answered him once upon a time. He answered him and he said, what's so irrational? Because don't forget, Harris says we're going to rationally decide what's right and wrong. What's so irrational about, this is Jordan Peterson's reply, of taking what I want? What's so rational about that? It might be irrational to you, but the guy with the biggest guns, the guy with the most tanks, the guy with the most nuclear weapons, the guy with the most power, he's going to say might is right. I don't care what your rules are. Imagine tomorrow I'm the most powerful man in the world and I walk into a bank and I take the money. I take their money and they call the police and I just crush the police. Whichever way, I just, have a larger gang than the police, and then they call the army and my gang crushes the army. If you have all the power, you can make up what's right and wrong. If God doesn't exist, this is very well established in philosophy. I don't want to get too deep into it, but listen, FYI, guys. Okay, read Nietzsche if you guys want a really heavy dose of this. If there's no God, then there's no morality. It's just whoever has the most power, he's going to decide what he'll tolerate from us. That's all it is. You have the law of the jungle. That's it. Now, Immanuel Kant, and I'm giving you a non-Muslim source because he came to the same conclusion as many great Islamic thinkers, is that I have this innate sense of right and wrong. Now, what does it mean to have an innate sense? An innate sense, I'll teach you guys a little basic philosophy, okay? You can know something deductively. Think of like Sherlock Holmes, okay? Deductive or inductive. I don't want to split hairs here, but let's call it mathematics, okay? You're using your logic and your wits. And then you have inductive or your empirical knowledge. So for instance, you're doing an experiment, how hot does water have to get before it boils? Well, there's no logic to that. I have to go out in the world and have to experiment. That's an inductive type of reasoning. I have to go some trial and error. And now I have deductive, inductive, two types of reasoning. And now I have also something called innate knowledge. Now we have examples in philosophy of innate knowledge that are irrefutable. Okay, like for instance, the one irrefutable sense of innate knowledge is our conscious minds. We can't deny our conscious minds. Even though we have zero scientific evidence for our conscious minds, zero. Like if I open up your brain and I look inside, there's no consciousness to be observed. There's only flesh materials. There's only concrete materials to observe. And if I try to deduce that you have a conscious mind, it's impossible. The only reason I believe you have a conscious mind is because I have one myself, and that's not deduction. That's known innately. So we have this innate sense to us. And here's the big punch, okay, that I feel that a lot of philosophers forget. Is innate knowledge is not subject to cross-examination. So let me give you a, for instance, to make it more clear, okay? Let's say I tell you I have a toothache. Now, is it my tooth that's really giving me that ache? Well, that's a question for empirical research. Now, that maybe it's my gum, or maybe it's a cancer I have in my jawbone and I'm mistaking it for my tooth. That's possible. It's subject to cross-examination. If you tell me I have a pain in my tooth, and later we discover, no, it's actually your jaw that's infected, it wouldn't surprise anybody, because the person experiencing the pain made an empirical error. He assumed that it was his tooth, but it's really his jawbone. It's subject to cross-examination. Maybe the pain is psychosomatic. Maybe there's nothing wrong with his tooth and it's just something he dreamt up. He's a little bit nuts in the head, and that's also subject to cross-examination. However, here's what's not subject to cross-examination. His innate sense of pain, his experience of pain, if he's feeling pain, whether it's psychosomatic or it's the jawbone or it's not the tooth or it's the gum line or whatever it is, that is known innately. He didn't have to be, think about it, you don't have to be very rational to feel pain. You don't have to be very experimental to feel pain. You don't have to be scientific in the least to feel pain. That is known just simply intuitively. Intuitive knowledge is well understood in the circles of epistemology, is not subject to cross-examination. It is not. If you feel something directly, that's what it is. There's nothing we could do about it. We can't convince you otherwise, and there's no need to. This is your direct experience. Now, Immanuel Kant said something really profound once upon a time, and it might be lost on many of us, okay, because this is very deep stuff. Don't forget, Immanuel Kant's one of the greatest thinkers of all time. He said, look, I can't shake this sense in me that I feel that it is true that things are right and wrong, that it's not made up, that I actually see things happen in nature and I feel that, hey, that's unfair. I have this weird sense inside me. Don't forget, this is not known deductively, so I can't define it for you. It's not known empirically, so I cannot create an experiment for it. Immanuel Kant is saying, look, I only know it innately. It cannot be contested. It cannot be cross-examined. Does he really know it innately? Well, you have to look, do you feel that too? I personally do feel that. Now, when atheists or secularists or agnostics say, look, we don't believe in that. And there's always two schools of thought or more. The people who disagree with this, they're going to typically tell you, look, there's nothing wrong with any activity. Any human action is not right or wrong. It's just up to you guys. It's up to you to decide what's right or wrong. So if you tell them, well, what about bestiality? Yep, that could be okay. I mean, as long as society accepts it, or the guy with whoever's in charge allows it, then there's nothing wrong with that. Inherently wrong. Obviously, everybody will find it gross and disgusting. But then you find yourself in these kind of like weird situations where you basically have to say yes to everything, which philosophers, on another hand, reject. Not all philosophers, of course not. But I share with Immanuel Kant that I do see things in nature or see things in the world around me that are inherently wrong. And I could not have this innate idea unless it was truly right or wrong. And this innate idea, guys, is not subject to cross-examination. That's where most people will fail to understand that innate ideas are not subject. They're known innately. By definition, they're not subject to that. Now, I don't know how much of this you guys can absorb, most of you or some of you, but I hope that helped clear up your answer. All right. Yes, he is. He wrote a book on objective morality. That's from Alex Padron. Alex, all due respect, his book on objective morality is not going to shake the philosophy world. It's not going to shake the world of ethics. Okay, it's going to convince a lot of people who don't know much about philosophy. At the end of the day, he's appealing to aesthetics. Is it wrong? No, it's not wrong. He's just, if he can convince millions of people, then he can start his own movement. I just don't feel he's going to do that. The reason why he's not going to do that, in my opinion, is because he has a negativity towards him. He doesn't understand the most important thing about ethics. Here's what Sam Harris does not understand, that I think Jordan Peterson explained to him quite nicely. All your ideas of right and wrong come from religion, the thing he hates the most. Where do you think your idea of halal and haram comes from? Sin and vice and all these, it all comes from religion. If you don't believe me, go to the Supreme Court Justice. Go to America, find the Supreme Court Justice, and they have the 18 great lawgivers. Statues. They have statues of the 18 great lawgivers. Where do you think the Americans got their ideas when they established their state? They looked at all the past civilizations that had great rules. One of the great civilizations of the day, in the past, was the Islamic Golden Age, where many groups, Jews, Christians, agnostics, secularists, atheists, lived together in harmony. Who did they elect? Who did they erect a statue to? Muhammad, Moses holding the Torah, Muhammad holding the Quran. They took many. Why is there a statue of Muhammad holding the Quran in the Supreme Court Justice? Look it up. You'll find it. It's well understood that no civilization in history, please correct me if I'm wrong, put it in the comment section, existed prior to religion. They all had a religion and then civilization occurred. We have no instance of a civilization and then religion. We only have a religion, right and wrong, community. Look, God drew this line in the sand, okay? Don't kill, don't murder, don't covet your neighbor's wife, don't lie, don't steal. If we all agree to this, we'll be a strong nation. Well, why shouldn't we lie or steal? No, don't philosophize. Stop. God said so. It's the ultimate authority. You cannot argue with this. Okay, great, we accept. All these ideas of right and wrong that he loves so much, that he holds so dear, that he thinks are so valuable to him, it wasn't easy to see the value of not lying. It wasn't easy to see the value of not stealing. Today we know the value because we're looking in hindsight. So if, for instance, there are two nations. One nation, they promote lying, cheating, and stealing. Get ahead. Do whatever it takes, but get ahead. And the other nation, they say, no, don't lie, cheat, or steal to one another. Let's be fair. Don't covet your neighbor's wife and follow the commandments. Okay. Which nation will survive? Well, this nation on this hand here, they're going to lie, cheat, and steal from each other. It's amazing that even the crime syndicates eventually discovered that this is bad. Like, for instance, if you go into a den of thieves or if you go into jail and you're what they call a rat, if you're a thief that lies about another thief or tells on another thief, you're considered the lowest of the low, because as thieves, we cannot thrive. Even the thieves hate lying. Like, for instance, if you're a rapist, they got to put you in a separate wing in the prison, because even the thieves don't want, even the people, the worst of the worst, even the most harsh criminals, they think that, no, we can't live with this type of corruption. This is harmful to us as a group. So back to my original example. Okay, you can find this example in The Republic by Plato. This nation that promotes lying, cheating, and stealing, they know that when I'm not looking at you, I know you're trying to steal from me. And when you're not looking at me, you know I'm trying to steal from you. So we're secretly always plotting against one another. By the time one of us thrives, this other group here has worked together and they've surpassed us by light years. The more corruption, the more the state is likely to fail over time. The less corruption, there's so many books written about how civilizations fail. The famous saying that civilizations don't die, they commit suicide. Why? Because they thrive, they go through a stage of maturity, and then they become really corrupt. Because everybody wants the goods. Everybody wants the resources. This nation, because they're so successful, they're rewarded with resources, and then they start to fight over the resources. Once a country becomes very rich and prominent and influential, it starts getting really corrupt, usually, okay? Where do you think you learned all this? It comes from religion. Like it or not, every religion comes with a code of ethics. And it's all based on God. That's the history of ethics, gentlemen. Like it or not, that's what it is. And Sam Harris tries to sweep it under the rug and say, no, we don't need any of that. At least pay homage. At least say, look, I'm a secularist. I see the value of the Ten Commandments. I just think we should adapt them to our modern day. I think that, I've grown to become atheist now. I don't believe in the deity part no more. At least give a salute to where the civilization that you love so much. where it comes from. It comes from our religion. At the end of the day, this is where it comes from. Okay, guys, that was a major left turn. How many minutes are we in? We're at 56 minutes. Let me end it on a nice little note here. What else we got? Have you heard of Gödel's incompleteness theorem? And if you did, what philosophical implication do you think that has? I have heard of it. It's not coming back to mind. I got to look it up again. I'm sorry for... I haven't gone over it in a very long time. I will have to look for it again. Coach, what do you think of Sufism, and how would you personally define God? Do great fighters need a belief in God? That's from Terrence Strong. Well, listen, Sufism, I have a very soft spot for Sufism. I think Sufism is great. If you look at all the classic Muslims, they were all Sufis, all of them. But Sufism, I think, means something very different today. Okay, so if you look at the classic Muslims, they all referred to Islam, the true Islam, as Sufism. Now, if you look at a Sufist, the Sufi Muslims are all peace and love and very, laid back, and fighting is the last resort. And what's Sufism about? It's exactly what we were talking about earlier. Now, if you guys want to go on this chain, because Terrence spent $20 on this question. So, Terrence, I'm going to give you a prolonged answer, a good answer. I think that you guys are going to like. There are very few statements in philosophy we agree on unanimously. Even 1 + 1 = 2, guys. I know, don't fall out of your chair right now, okay? I believe 1 + 1 = 2. You believe it. 99% of us believe it. There's always a philosopher out there who's even going to argue against that. Don't ask me how. Basically, they're going to say that this 1 + 1 = 2 is just happening in your head. It has no truth value whatsoever. Let's not even get into that. But I'm just saying, look how far philosophers go. Philosophers are so critical. They're so skeptical. It's crazy. But there is a group of people out there that are even more skeptical than philosophers. Who are these people that are even more skeptical than philosophers? I'll tell you who. The mystics. Mystics are more skeptical than philosophers. The first mystic in the history of Western civilization during the Enlightenment period was René Descartes. He came so close. He came so close to mysticism. He just missed by a hair. He just missed. Now listen, any statement I give you, there's always somebody who's going to come and cross-examine you and find a little speck of doubt. Okay, if you ever read Descartes' Meditations, that's what he does. He doubts mathematics, he doubts science, he doubts everything. He says, look, let me play devil's advocate. Let me pretend there's a demon out there with the power of a deity, and he's always trying to confuse me. Every time I do an experiment, he's trying to blotch my experiment. He's saying I got to have a fundamental belief that's so strong, even a demon couldn't possess me to believe something to be untrue. And Descartes gets really close with what is known to be the cogito. I think, therefore I am. He came really close, but he didn't hit mysticism. Came really close. Who hit mysticism? Well, the first mystics were the Muslim thinkers. Like it or not, it was them. The first mystics in history, recorded mystics, the ones we know of. Maybe it was Parmenides in the Greeks. If not, if you don't agree Parmenides was a mystic, because the problem with Parmenides is we don't have his exact writings. Okay, we only have his works, his dialogues in Plato. And with Plato, it's not 100% mysticism. Here's one of the greatest mystic sayings in the history of mysticism. And let's see if you can wrap your mind around this. Avicenna said, there is existence. Can anybody out there find any doubt in that statement? There is existence. Any way you look at it, if you're in the Matrix, if you're having a dream, if there's a demon out there trying to confuse you, like Descartes tried to, very entertainingly, he writes about it in his book of meditation. I highly recommend it. It's a great book. Even if there was this demon or whatnot or whatever craziness you want to come up with, anything, like I'm even if I was under the influence of the strongest drug in history, you still can confuse me about this statement. There is existence. Now, this is just the opening door. Avicenna said, look, I have this one thing I could be 100% sure about. I'll never doubt this one thing. What is this one thing? There is existence. This outdone what Descartes said. Descartes said something many years later, 600 years later. He says, I think, therefore I am. You couldn't confuse me about that, because even if you gave me a false thought, that false thought would prove that I exist, because to have thoughts, I have to exist. That is the essence of the cogito. So he thought that was super solid, you know, just as solid as what Avicenna said. But he was wrong. Okay, Nietzsche later corrects him. You can't say I think. I think is a presupposition. You can't presuppose anything in philosophy. We'll knock you down. We'll break your building down. We'll find whatever you presuppose and we'll knock it down. You can't presuppose anything when you say there is existence. Now, back to what I was saying earlier. Is that known deductively? Do you know that by logic or reason? No, you do not. Do you know it by some kind of scientific experiment? No, you do not. You only know it intuitively, innately. So it seems that our journey to knowledge, our start, is an innate knowledge, not a rational one. So there is something higher than reason. There is something that precedes reason. Precedes reason. Now, Avicenna gave a great thought experiment, but I think it's just too much for this podcast. It's just way too much. It will just confuse people and enrage people, actually. But he proved this point beautifully, that there is existence. And from there, he launched his philosophy in many different directions. But this was an unshakable truth. The fact that you first are an innate being. You know things innately. Why did he bring this about? Because he just basically proved to us that all of the universe happening around us is first happening in this point of awareness. Okay, so there is existence. That reduces human beings, listen carefully here, not to bodies, not to flesh and bone, but to a point of awareness. And even you have to take away point, that point. Forget point. You have no proof of point. That's a presupposition. That's something you've adorned this experience with. There's only this awareness, this oneness, this infinity that didn't start or begin or it'll never have an end, etc. Everything else is encompassed in this awareness. This is something called, if you want to look it up for those of you who are more interested, it's called the egocentric predicament. And from there, there's a whole host of beliefs, arguments, experiences a human being can have. But this is the foundation of mysticism. They went so far, they doubted so much that, you know, once you get to anywhere near their level of doubt, most people have dropped off. They won't get that doubtful. They won't be that critical. But these thinkers were the most critical. They wanted something not 99% certain, 100% certain. And that led them to a spiritual type of belief, not to an empirical or materialistic one. Again, I'm putting it in very short terms. I'm giving you guys a brief history of mysticism, very brief. And that's my answer to you, my friend. Does that make you a good fighter? No. No, it doesn't make you a good fighter. It's of intrinsic value, my friend. It's not of extrinsic value. Extrinsic value is, does it put money in my bank account? Does it put gas in my car? Does it put food in my belly? Does it put a roof over my head? Those are extrinsic things. Mysticism has nothing to do with extrinsic. You don't become a mystic because you want to make money. You don't become, but some do. Some will give they'll see people dying and they'll see people sick and they'll put on this, hey, I'm this holy man type guy, and they'll rub them blind. Some do, some don't. But when you go on this type of quest for knowing, it's because you have a thirst for truth. You have a thirst for what is real. You know, you're curious. You're genuinely curious. If you want money, if you want to be a good fighter, well, you got to train hard. If you want to put a roof over your head, you got to work. You got to find, start a business. Now, look, do I believe in predestination? Yes. Does that entail God chose all things? Yes. I do believe in determinism. I'm a hard determinist. That's a talk for another day. I'm a hard determinist. That's a philosophy I adopt to. I believe in the qadar, the determinist. Yes, that's determined by God. So ultimately speaking, all things are determined by God. But nobody goes on a journey to know the truth. Okay, if you're going to go that far, it's because you are curious. And you can expect a pot of gold at the end, a spiritual pot of gold. Yes. An intense happiness, yes. A brand new Lamborghini? No, I wouldn't, that's not the case. Okay, guys, let's wrap it up. Last question. Let me refresh one last time. All right. Let me do one last one. We're over an hour. Another fun podcast. Passed really quickly. I'm just rebooting I'm refreshing my page here. Still a lot of people in the chat room. Excellent connection, it says. Okay. All right, lots of chats jumping in. Wow. What do you think of Jesus? Oh boy, man. This really is a ask me anything. This is a really big, massive ask me anything. Okay, guys. All right, that'll be the last one, okay? Listen, it's a very important topic because so much there hasn't been a more controversial life in human history. I don't care if you're atheist or Christian or Muslim or Jewish. We all have to admit unanimously that this is the most controversial life in history. Now, let me give you my thoughts, because I have studied what Jewish scholars say, Christian scholars say, Muslim scholars say, and agnostic/secular scholars say. I have read so many books on Jesus, the historical Jesus. I've read the Bible, I've read the Quran, I've read all these materials. It's a massive amount of reading. There's so many books written on the story of the Messiah, the story of Jesus Christ. I don't care if you're the most hardcore atheist, you're even interested. So many people become biblical scholars and they don't even believe in Christianity. So many people become scholars in Islam, like we call them Orientalists. No, they don't come from a Muslim background. They're just interested in the 6th and 7th century and they want to know all about it. Here's where Christianity is very different from Islam and Judaism. Okay, so every religion, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they all trace their roots back to Abraham. Okay, so they're the Abrahamic religions. They all critique one another. Okay, they all have their critiques of one another. Christianity did something in particular, though. Christianity did something so unique, so different, that it has become a whole different almost system. And let me explain, okay? Please give me a chance to explain. In Judaism, you have this we believe there's an innate sense of God. In Islam, in the Quran, it tells you specifically that there's an innate belief. It's called the fitrah of God. You're born with this religion. Like when you were in the womb of your mother, you didn't know anything about your name. You didn't know anything about the world outside. You had no sensory experience, but you had this thing inside. You had this consciousness. You had this innate sense, this innate sense of existence. We just talked about there is existence. Okay, you had this being to you. You had this fitrah. And Christianity comes along, and very specifically a man named Paul, and he says this. He says, look, this man named Jesus Christ was crucified. He died and was resurrected. And this historical event, if you believe in it, you're saved. If this historical event did not happen, your faith is in vain. Okay, this is Paul writing this in his epistles, in his letters. He now took the Abrahamic faiths from the belief in one God. I'm not going to debate the Trinity here. I'm not saying that the Trinity is more than one God. I'm saying because before in Abrahamic religion, in Islam, all you have to do is believe in one God and be a good person. And now Paul is saying, look, not only you have to believe in one God Forget about being a good person. That's another topic. He says, you have to believe in this historical event. You have to believe in this historical event. If you don't believe in this historical event, Islam doesn't ask you to believe in a historical event. The Hebrew law doesn't ask you to believe in a historical event. Yes, there's the flood of Noah, Adam, these are things are told to us by authority, by faith. Some might argue it's metaphorical, some literal, etc. But that's irrelevant. You can say, look, I think this is more metaphor, this is more realistic, this is more. These are things that in time, according to science, again, if you read Imam Ghazali's work, he says, look, science will tell us what is metaphorical, what is literal. But Paul went completely to the other extreme. Paul said, look, this thing, if it didn't happen, you're lost. And if it did happen, you don't believe it, you're lost. Like this thing, this historical event is got to be known. Okay, so we look, hey, let's research this historical event. Let's see what happened exactly. So you have the Bible telling you this is what happened. And then you have secular sources that have nothing to do with Christianity. Because historians, if you're going to be a good historian, you want multiple attestations that are independent, you know? So if a store was robbed in your neighborhood and 10 people who don't know each other tell you the exact same story, you're going to be like, hey, that store was robbed in this very particular way. When we look at the secular sources, there are no mentions of this man named Jesus Christ who was sacrificed, okay? There's no mention. There's only one mention, which is the book of Josephus, which is an very questionable forgery. I don't want to get into why, but Josephus was a Jew who converted to paganism, who is referring to Jesus as the Christ. Now, no Jew would ever refer to Jesus as the Christ, because Christ would mean he's the Messiah. No Jew believed that Jesus was the Messiah in that time, because that means you would be a follower of Christ. Christ means if you say he's the Messiah, that means you believe in him. So it was just nonsensical. Okay, scholars will tell you that's a Christian forgery, 100%. The secular proofs that Jesus was crucified are very negligible, highly negligible, like incredibly negligible. So all you can refer to is the Bible. Okay, so we look at the Bible. Now, this becomes very circular. Why? Because Paul is telling you, Paul is the first writer of the Bible. He wasn't there. He's a self-proclaimed apostle. And he says, look, Jesus Christ came to me in a vision. He was sacrificed. He was raised. And I'm not a liar. Okay, well, how do I know Jesus Christ was crucified? It says it in the Bible. Well, okay, who told me that? Paul. So Paul is giving credit to the Bible. The Bible is giving credit to Paul. It's circular. One is identifying the other as being true, but they're from the same voice. Like, for instance, Paul says, hey, I went to meet Peter and James, and I spent 2 weeks with Peter, Peter being the right-hand man of Jesus Christ. But he's the one saying that, not Peter. Peter is not corroborating the story. Who corroborates the story of Paul? Every document we have is highly questionable and very likely forged. Like the letters of Peter. If you ask the scholars, don't ask me. Don't ask a Muslim scholar. Don't ask a Jewish scholar. Ask a Christian scholar or a secular scholar. They all say the same. We're not sure of all the letters of Paul, who wrote them. So even the letters of Paul that you have today in your Bible, or an amalgam, they're a collage of other letters that he supposedly wrote. 7 out of the 14 are questioned to be forgeries. Like there's so, if you listen to a biblical scholar talk about how the Bible was compiled and the troubles of how, if they're historical or not, even the most fundamental Christian has to question the historical accuracy of the Bible. Even the most like for instance, there's a scholar, his name is Mike Lacona, a believing evangelical scholar, historical scholar. He says, look, we don't even know who wrote Matthew. He admits to it. He says, look, the book of Matthew, it's not really Matthew, it's not the disciple Matthew. Actually, the book is anonymous. And then he tells you, again, this is not me speaking, this is Mike Lacona. And then you talk scholars like Bart Ehrman, who are former fundamental Christians, former. He just said, look, I can't believe in it because of the problem of evil. Plus, we don't know who wrote Mark. We don't know who wrote John. There's so many questionable beliefs that you have to say, historical beliefs. You have to say, look, this is theology. This is not history. then I could be with you. I could be like, look, it doesn't matter if it happened that way. It's the lesson. Okay, it's the lesson. It's not the event. The events are just like allegory to give you an idea of what's right and wrong, etc. Okay, but it's not the case. It can never be the case, because Paul drew a line in the sand and he said, look, I wasn't there to, by the way, Paul was not there to see the crucifixion. He's saying, but I'm telling you it's true because I had a vision of Christ. Vision. He was on the road to Damascus. You know, you guys should know this. It's a very popular story, a massively popular story. He was on the road to Damascus and he had a vision of Jesus Christ, and Jesus came to him and told him, hey, why do you kick against the goad? Now, this is a very old translation. I don't know if you guys still read it that way, but because there are different translations. But the most popular back in the day, I would say the late 90s, early 90s, was, why do you kick against the goad? Why are you going against me? So he converted to Christianity, and he says now he believes in this historical event called the crucifixion. And now Jesus died for your sins. And now if he died for your sins, this historical event, you have to be confident. You have to believe in this historical event. This is where Paul took the Abrahamic faiths and he got off track. He took it on a different track. Okay, I don't want to be judgmental here. Consider 9/11, okay? Consider 9/11. We have video cameras of what happened on 9/11. We have eyewitness testimony. We have millions of people who saw the video, millions and millions, and we have thousands of people who witnessed it. Still, there are incredible questions, and that just happened 20 years plus years ago. Almost 20 years ago. Excuse me, 2001, 19 years ago. What happened to Building 7? Was there bombs in the building? How come it fell at the speed of free fall? Some people even question, was it a plane or is it just imagery? Or so many conspiracies. We cannot be sure exactly what happened on 9/11. I personally believe 2 planes crashed in the building. I don't know if there was bombs in the building. I can't even tell you. You know, the guy who designed the building said that it could withstand multiple Boeing jets, et cetera, et cetera. So many. Here's the thing. We can never have a historical fact from 2,000 years ago. We can never. There's no historical fact. There's only consensus, and consensus changes over time. And the only reason you have so many people believe in this event is because of the Bible. But then you go and check the history of the historical accuracy of the Bible, and there are many issues. Many. Matthew misquotes the Septuagint. He definitely misquotes the Septuagint, no doubt about it. He has several errors. I don't want to get into it because I know people are getting very touchy about it. But this is not me saying this. This is Christian scholars say openly. Get any book by Bart Ehrman. Any book. Get even the most fundamental evangelical. His name is James White. Probably the most intelligent evangelical I've ever come across. Even he admits there are errors. Even he admits. He says, look, the Bible is in there somewhere, among all these texts. But we don't have the original. But let me tell you something about the original. It's, how can I say this? The oldest manuscripts are in the 800s. Let's be generous and say the full manuscripts. The full biblical manuscripts, let's say the oldest ones, are from the 6th, 7th century. And I'm being very generous here. Everything else before is fragments. And these fragments, the closer you go to the Jesus Christ story, the more different they are and the more fragmented they are. So the more the story fades, the more the story gets confusing. And believe me when I tell you, I've researched this for, I would say, at least 15 years, 10, 15 years. Nobody really knows what the historical Jesus said or did. They know very little. There's very little to be confident about. Yet Paul, in his alleged writings, they're not even sure about at least half the letters of Paul. This is not, again, not me. Scholars are saying these are the questions, and they have good reasons why, okay? Because writing styles change over time. Don't forget, when you make something up, you're using less archaic language. So if I find something that's really old, first of all, the paper it's on better be old, the ink it's on better be old, and the language better be very archaic. Because the way people speak today is very different than the way people speak in the 80s. But guess what? It's way different than people spoke in the 1600s. Their language was much more archaic. And the farther you go, the farther back you go, the less words you have, and the more archaic the sentences are. So they could tell you, hey, look, somebody spliced in, cut and paste some new chapters. They have very, very strong evidence of this. I've heard their lectures. It's very hard for me to repeat them verbatim. So if you're an Orthodox Christian, your faith, according to Paul is the founder of Christianity. Nobody can argue that. He's the one who propagated Christianity. You know what's funny? There's a great documentary on YouTube. Look it up. It's called The Real Jesus Christ. Let me look up for you. Hold on a second. All right, hold on. Let me see. Let me find it for you real quick. I'll give you guys the exact title. It's let's see. It basically sums up the modern consensus. Okay. All right, let me see if I can find you guys. All right, here it is. Yeah, this is it. Okay, so look, I'll cut and paste it. You guys watch this documentary. I think this is the right one. I'm going to put it in the chat right now, guys. I'm going to drop it right now. So basically, it talks about, at the end of the video, it talks to you about the Ebionites. Basically, the truest followers of Christ, the early Christians. And Bart Ehrman actually has great courses on early Christian thoughts. The early Christianities, which I've listened to it several times. The early Christians, what did they believe? We have no idea. We don't know. It's very unlikely that they believed Jesus was God. Very unlikely. And the crucifixion story, there's a lot of different beliefs on that. Okay, many, many different beliefs. And I can go on and on, but this is just too much theology for this channel. The point being is this. Paul competes with the Ebionites, the original followers of the Jerusalem church. The first church in history, guys, is the Jerusalem church. Paul admits it himself. It's Peter and James. They have the Jerusalem church. They have a beef with Paul. The Ebionites, the followers of Jerusalem church, they think Paul is the Antichrist. Listen to this. Anyways, watch that documentary. There's James Dominic Crossan, a very renowned scholar, a couple other scholars. Basically, everything they're saying is what modern scholarship is saying. It's just a modern understanding of the Jesus Christ story. Don't forget, many new manuscripts in the last few hundred years have been studied, broken down. And now today with computer technology, they're able to do things they were never able to do in the past. And basically, nobody has any idea what happened in the first century. They're all just cutting and pasting, guessing, so many different theologies, so many different possibilities. At the end of the day, Paul made Christianity about history. Islam and Judaism is about innate faith. Reasonable faith. Where did I come from? I have this sense of right and wrong. I have this sense, I believe in one God. I was born with this innate idea. It makes sense that I came from something else. How was I born into this world? You have all these existential questions you're asked to reflect on in the Torah and in the Quran. Paul took Christianity in another direction. He made it about a historical event, and we can never know history. We can never know. Some people are so sure it happened this way. How on earth would you know that? There's just so many ways when you cross-examine the story. It just doesn't hold water. And this is not me saying this. This is Christian scholars will say this openly. Okay, guys, I hope you guys all had a good time. I hope we were entertained, and I will see you all